Now we're going to have a look at the controls of the other member of this plugin family, the MEQ5, which, as I said, emulates the performance of the classic Pultec mid-range equalizer. But in this case, it's Jack Joseph Puig's personal version, which possibly has been modified in some way by a clever technician, or just because the simple fact we know that no two of either of these products ever were exactly the same. You could actually have a good one and a not so good one. You wouldn't necessarily have a bad one, but they did seem to vary. So based on the premise that JJP's personal ones are particularly good, this is why Waves have modelled those ones. Now this is an interesting equalizer, unlike most of those out in the marketplace, in that it's got two boosting bands. So this one here, which boosts any of these 5 frequencies, then a dip band here, which attenuates any of these frequencies here, of which there are many, and then another boost band over here, which boosts, again, not terribly high. So its highest boost is 5K, which is why it's called a mid-range equalizer. I mean, its lowest low is only 200 Hertz. So it really just deals with the detail in the middle of the mix. So we'll just have a look at how these boosts and cuts work. And something I'm really fond of this EQ for is this little boost here, usually around 3 or 4K on a mix. I think it's fantastic on a vocal. It's a really good way of bringing a vocal forward and making it a little bit more intelligible without putting any of that sort of fizz or fairy dust that some people put on a vocal. It kind of leaves the top end entirely alone and just brings it forward. Now that's in mixing, but even in mastering, it can bring a snare or a guitar or vocals forward as well. So just in this mix, I'll leave it at 3K and let's have a listen to what a boost does. And I bet he wait, ready for whatever. I'm coming fully equipped, about to show him. Now you can see it's quite a narrow sort of thin boost. But what you can see is that, I mean, I'm boosting here 6 or 7, and I mean, it's not a dramatic, massive change like a 7 dB change on some EQs would be. I'll just bypass. So that's probably not where I'd want to do it for this mix anyway. I'd push it a little bit higher. Okay. Now I'll bypass there. So it's just a little bit of presence comes out in the middle, and that's really a nice thing. Now down here, you're not going to get any big thumping bass out of this one, because even at 200, you'll hear where that pushes. Yeah, so I've gone all the way there. So it's just that low mid thing. What I like about this though is, while that is a ridiculous boost, it's not sort of peaking and freaking out. I mean, I'm overloading, but it's a different sort of sound. It's a very forgiving kind of sound. It can actually take quite a lot in a mix without destroying everything. Now the dip here is quite a wide band, as you can see. So it's all the way from 200 Hertz up to 7,000. So that can be used to take out, say, a nasty edge in a track. And I'll just reset these and we'll have a listen to that. So let's say there is a nasty edge around 4 or 5K. I can go to 4 there. And that's quite dramatic, you can hear. But at the same time, you can pull that out and then push 5 over here. The beauty of these Pultecs is all the overlapping that you can do between frequencies. So there we go, we're pushing 5 and cutting 4. So I mean, you can get into some crazy stuff. This track doesn't need this, so it's not the point. I'll just reset that. Some of that sort of low MIDI sort of things you can dip out as well. Yep. So look, the point about these Pultecs in general is that they're not surgical tools. If we want surgical in this plugin set, we're going to go for the linear phase EQ, which we'll be discussing next. So in this case, they're kind of broad sweetening tools, and that's what they're fantastic for putting a nice big kind of coloured top end onto things and a big fat bottom boost, and not so much for kind of dialing out narrow problem areas. So that's something to keep in mind when you actually hear a track, decide in your head what sort of treatment you think it requires. Then it's the job to work out which tool is going to do that job best. And when it's a big, broad sweetening that you want, the Pultec's going to be the first thing I'd reach for anyway. So that's all we're going to talk about with respect to the MEQ5. Now, I know that in the previous movie I teased that in this movie we would discuss the mains section of each of these two plugins, but actually I've got some good ideas for what we're going to do there, and I think that deserves a movie unto itself. So that'll be the next movie, and I'll see you there.